much more in common than we think. In this episode, I'll be sharing 5 things that I have observed from my work as a therapist for over 25 years and the universality of the human condition. Welcome to The Modern Creative Woman, exploring the art and science of creativity. I'm your hostess and creativity expert, Dr. Amy Backos. Let's get started. Have you considered the idea that we are more alike than we are different? I was reflecting on how there are common themes across all of the people that I've worked with, and it's been thousands. And there seems to be universal truths in philosophy and religion and psychology and sociology. And the more I thought about this, the more I found 5 that seem to fit best for the work that I've done. The first one is we all have traumas. Suffering is a universal experience. Now, traumas look different for everyone. There can be developmental traumas where there's some kind of upset during our formative years. There can also be smaller traumas where we're disappointed, have a loss, things didn't go the way we planned, we struggle. And there is, of course, lots of big traumas. The point is that we all experience suffering in some way, that pain is a universal part of the human condition. And the more I reflect on that, the more empathy I have for myself and for other people. One thing that psychology teaches us is that it's hard to know what will tip someone over into a trauma reaction. Sometimes people face large traumas and then later on a small trauma tips them over into a full-blown anxiety experience or a post-traumatic stress disorder. We can also be experiencing high levels of stress from cumulative traumas, living in a violent community, a war-torn place. There's so many external factors that cause stress. And it's often one that tips us over into trauma. Another universal is that we often have to go backwards to know how to go forwards. And many people go to therapy or talk to their spiritual leader because they want to make changes and move forward. And then they find that they're moving backwards. They feel like they've maybe lost all the progress that they've made, or somehow they've failed because they've made progress and then they regressed a little bit. And so regression can look like all kinds of things. If someone's trying to lose weight, they eat a cookie and they think, oh, I've lost all of this. Or they have a day where they eat the whole package of cookies and they think they've lost all their hard work, and it's simply not true. Another example is someone's doing all kinds of personal work, journaling, making art, going to therapy, then they go visit their family at the holidays, and they find that they have regressed to their adolescent self, and they feel like they've failed. You can think of many examples where you've taken 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. This is part of the process. And psychologists have known about this since the 70s, and the trans-theoretical model of change helps us understand this. It explains how we decide we want to make a change, we take some preparation steps, we finally take action, and the next step is relapse. We go backwards. And relapse is part of the process. We get back on the change model at any place. We can relapse and go right back to changed behavior. We can return to a spot of preparation, or we can give up completely and feel like we're not going to do anything to change. My point is, we have to go back to know that we really want to go forward and make changes. Taking that step back for someone who's trying to quit substances, they have a slip or a relapse, it reminds them of why they want to be sober and live a sober life. My favorite imagery for this is an archer has to pull back the arrow before they can fire it. That there is a necessary part of knowing our values and how we want to change and how we want to be through the action of relapse or regression. Another thing I know is that substances do nobody any good. Now, people try to avoid pain. It's what we want. Our brain wants us to not feel bad. And so many of us will use drugs, alcohol to soothe our pain, to stop feeling so bad, to self-medicate. And the idea that, we're making steps to try and feel better. And then we discover that those substances are avoidance strategies to help us avoid, control, or escape our pain. And it does nobody any good. If we're trying to live a creative, authentic life, even a glass of wine doesn't help us. And certainly when people are coming into therapy, continuing to drink, even if it's a small amount, does not help. It stops progress for that period of time. If someone comes home in the evening and has a drink to relax and unwind, they're not using their mind to stretch into creative coping skills. They're not learning that they can tolerate emotional distress from work or their family. So anytime that we use substances to check out of our experience, it does not serve us. Other things that fall into this category are compulsive behaviors. Of course, gambling, shopping, anything that helps us avoid a pain or a discomfort or some kind of emotional distress. Engaging in these behaviors only slows us down. It does not allow us to move forward in the way that we can for our own future growth. The fourth universal that I've noticed is that decisions are always way better than an indecision. And I've known people who vacillated in indecision for years and even decades. People can struggle with a decision that is taking up so much space in their brain. If they just made the decision, they could have increased creativity, increased compassion. However, failing to make a decision leaves us feeling awful. It puts us into a space of liminal anxiety, where we're in that in-between spot and we can't move forward, we can't move back, and we just mull over the decision. Making a decision and moving forward is so helpful. So you can ask yourself, if I had to make my decision today, what would I decide? What would I do? These kinds of questions help us move forward in a way that alleviates the pressure, right? You can always change your mind, but if you just made a decision today, what would you choose? Most of us don't need additional information to make these kinds of decisions. We just need to decide. Another thing we can do is set a deadline for our decision. And the fifth universal that I've noticed is that ambivalence is normal. We all struggle with uncertainty of wanting something, but also wanting the other thing, of wanting to get better, but maybe not wanting to do the work it requires. Many people have told me they want to go to therapy to work on their personal problems, but it just feels too painful. They want to change, but they feel really scared about doing the work. And I have to say that is so normal. We all have ambivalence about change. You can desperately want a promotion at work, a certain kind of relationship, and also feel like you don't want the responsibility of that promotion, or you don't want to give up your freedom in a relationship. Ambivalence is normal. The goal is to find some kind of balance with it, go towards our values, and tolerate the ambivalence, to not let that feeling interrupt you or stop you from moving towards your values. So let me know what you think. Do you find that these 5 truths are part of your own experience? That we all have traumas, we all have pain, that we have to go backwards to know about going forward, that substances really don't do us any good, that decisions are better than indecision, and ambivalence is normal. So now that you know, what will you create? Have a wonderful week, and I cannot wait to see you in the next episode. And hey, come join me in the Modern Creative Woman on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest at Dr. Amy Bacos. You can be a friend of the pod and keep this content free and accessible. And if you have yet to get your copy of the 5 Values of the Modern Creative Woman, hop on over to the Art Therapy Center SF and join our email list so you can get your free copy of the aspirational principles that you need to live your modern creative life.